Okay, look, in a business setting, if you don't have a goal, it doesn't really matter what strategy you adopt, it's unlikely to produce the results you were hoping for. Goals should be something tangible to set your sights on. As Tony Robbins describes it, setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. Now I'm delighted to welcome Johnny Bell, Olympic and Irish hockey player, and I've described as in your spare time working as an environmental researcher, and it's something I know you're really passionate about. Um, I also know that you claim to wing this, but on pitch success and off the pitch success, like your PhD, etc., there must be some goal setting. So let's talk about goals, and no pun intended. So tell me a wee bit about goal setting and why you would set goals and the benefits you feel about goal setting.
Yeah, I think goal setting is incredibly important, whether it's in a sporting context, whether it's in a business context. I think it really helps to narrow the focus. Um, I think also the process of setting goals is very important because whether you're in a team environment or in an office environment, that whole process can have to sort of gain buy-in from colleagues or teammates and try and really, I suppose, unite people around a common purpose and trying to achieve that goal.
So getting people on side with, if you set a goal for your team, getting people on side with that is obviously critical to it. So how would you get people to do that, buy into your vision of your goal?
Well, I think it has to be a collaborative process where everybody has to be involved. Everybody has to be involved in the process of setting that overarching goal and then looking at, well, what are the mechanisms and the means for then achieving that goal? So, what is going to be your winning formula that's going to help you
Yeah.
achieve that goal in the long run?
Okay, so short term goals, medium term goals, and longer term goals. If we take you back to your Olympic success, okay, that didn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So there must have been a series of goals set, both short, medium, and long, to do that. So what type of goals were set around that?
Well, I think if you don't have that, first of all, that overarching goal, then I think by having that overarching goal, your everyday actions and your everyday decisions are then aligned with trying to achieve that goal. Whereas if you don't set an overarching goal, then I think there's less direction for your everyday
Yeah.
decision making and those everyday actions. So whether it's going to the gym, whether it's in training, if you don't have that bigger picture in mind, it's very hard to motivate yourself. For us, it all started out in the Olympic qualification process. We knew that no team from Ireland had ever qualified for an Olympic Games before. We had participated in the Olympics back in 1908 as an invitation, but we were very much setting out to achieve the impossible.
Yeah.
And we very much learnt from previous experiences of not qualifying. And so setting out with that big overarching goal of achieving the Olympics is quite an aspirational goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it has to be broken down into bite-sized pieces. And it was about taking the qualification process one step at a time. And that started out in San Diego. And again, we had quite an extensive preparation phase leading into that. Again, we would set out goals for that tournament, goals for what we needed to improve on as a team. And then individually, we would look at, well, what do we need to do to try and improve the collective? What
Yeah.
individually can I do? What should my goals for improvement and development be that can contribute to the wider team performance?
You talk about longer term goals or dream big. Quite often they're described as big, hairy, audacious goals, which is just right out there thinking think the impossible, and really have a big dream. But then you said it obviously is critical to break it down to bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
So that creates some sort of momentum, basically, some traction behind the whole thing. So what about you as an individual then, around goal setting? If the team goal was to get to the Olympics and it was broken down to bite-sized chunks, what about your own personal goals around that? Obviously you wanted to be involved, so what did you have to do personally to make sure that you would be involved in that process?
Yeah, I suppose having set out to be part of a team that would qualify for the Olympic Games, I sort of set out to be the best athlete that I could be. I suppose I did set an aspirational target to be the best man-to-man defender in the world. That's subjective as to whether I actually achieved that, but
I think you did.
thanks,
Okay,
Roger.
okay.
Yeah, but certainly, yeah, it was very much for me about being the best that I could be, so being the fittest that I'd ever been, and then identifying one or two technical areas where I wanted to really improve in my game, but also recognizing my strengths as well and the strengths that I wanted to maximize and to really show in every performance that I put in. You can very quickly lose sight of what you're good at,
Yeah.
and you've got to keep doing what you're good at. but then add into the mix those things where you can make that sort of 5 to 10% improvement, and by making those individual improvements you really contribute to an overall collective improvement.
Yeah, so small steps going forward. Dave Brailsford
Absolutely.
always talked about marginal gains. In
Yeah.
a business environment, you don't go from here to the
Yeah.
end result. It has to be marginal gains and little steps.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to hear that you as an individual bought into the overall, if I call it company,
Yeah.
the big picture goal. In a business environment, though, it's sometimes a little bit harder. Because you wanted to achieve that, so you were on board, and I presume there were times that each person in that team sat down and looked at each other and said, "You're not on board here." And if that happened, how did you deal with that when you had a team member who maybe wasn't pulling their weight or right on the same page as the rest of you?
Yeah, I think that comes down to sort of the team culture and whatever sort of environment you create and what sort of high performance environment you create. And I think it's important at the beginning of any of these processes that you sit down and you evaluate, well, what are the values and the expectations of this group and of this high performance environment. And therefore, if you're going to buy into this environment and be part of it, you must subscribe to those values, to those expectations, and try to deliver those to the best of your ability. And it's difficult in high performance sport because some people are selected and some aren't, so it can very easily fuel resentment, or some people maybe don't want to be part of the journey. But I think if you can sell the concept and sell the dream to that group, and you have a group of really dedicated and passionate individuals who are all, I suppose, very passionate about trying to achieve that goal, anything is possible. But it does come back to creating that culture and establishing what the values and expectations are if you're going to be part of a group that's seeking to perform at that level.
It is fascinating how much business and I'll call it professional sport, because it is effectively a professional sport, have got in common with each other about leadership, team culture, core values, desire.
Yeah.
So that's really, really fascinating. There's obviously hurdles along the way and you have hiccups, so did you achieve all your goals? Did you come across something, maybe you had injury, and how did you still keep on the same page, and how did you decide to keep going?
Well, I think we probably were so focused on qualifying for the Olympics, because that was such a big hurdle, that we maybe took our eye off actually performing at the Olympics. So that was maybe one big learning outcome. And we went to the Olympics, we performed admirably, but didn't make the impact that we wanted in terms of getting into any of the medal games. So that's something that I'd still have a burning desire to try and do, and to try and medal at one of these big major tournaments, whether it be a World Cup or an Olympics.
That's interesting. So the outcome was to get to it, but they actually hadn't focused on what do we do when we get there.
I think we all took a big sigh of relief when we qualified, and I'm not saying that we didn't work really, really hard, but this was, I suppose, new territory for everyone, for our coaching staff, for us as players, for the administrators who govern the Irish hockey, that this was the first time we ever had a team participating at this level, and so people maybe didn't know what to expect. But I think next time round, hopefully it happens, we'll be that bit better prepared.
After the Olympics, you've obviously now gone on to the World Cup last November. Quite close to the tournament, the coach stepped aside and there was a new coach came in. So that's a change in leadership pretty far down a development programme. Were the core values and culture so embedded that the change in leadership didn't actually have a negative impact, or was it a short-term win from somebody else coming in?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly wasn't ideal having your coach stepping aside 3 months before a World Cup. Having said that, we have a very strong leadership group in the team. The culture that we had was very much about empowering the players to lead the programme and to set the culture and to drive the adherence to the team culture. So we had those building blocks in place, and the new coach, we were very fortunate to get such a world-class coach to come in at such short notice. And he was quite conscious of the fact that he maybe didn't want to change things too much because it was so close to a World Cup. So he probably didn't get the opportunity to put his print on things. But I suppose going forward now, that he will have that opportunity to really put his stamp on things.
And in your business career then, have you been able to transfer some of the knowledge that you've gained in your hockey career into your business career?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I have a background as environmental research, and I'm a town planner by trade. And I suppose you're working in an office environment, it's a team environment, and I very much enjoy teamwork. I think that's where I always get the best results. working as part of a team and bringing out the strengths in each of your team members. And I think it's that bit more rewarding when you achieve something as a team. So for me, the whole teamwork aspect has been massively rewarding. There's other aspects to it that cross over, from time management, as a high performance athlete, managing a full-time career, as well as social life. You've got to be on top of your diary. It's a lifestyle choice, so we don't complain about the fact we have a very, very full diary, and we have to make lifestyle choices, and you have to make some sacrifices along the way, but again, that is a lifestyle choice. So certainly there have been things that I've learned, and I suppose just generally having that a bit of drive, a bit of determination, a bit of dedication, being able to absorb setbacks. That happens in business, that happens in life, that happens in sport. I suppose early on in my career, when I was a youngster, I wasn't picked for a lot of the underage international teams. At one stage I was told I was too small to play at that level. So I didn't actually get my first cap for Ireland until I was 24, which is relatively late by today's standards. So it just goes to show that sometimes you do get setbacks, but it's being able to absorb those setbacks and not get too disheartened, and knowing that there is a longer term game here. And
surely everything's got to be a learning experience. It doesn't all go in a straight line, both a hockey career or business. There are ups and downs, and it's how you react.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of sort of sporting commentators talk about you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes, and there is a lot of truth in that. Evaluation is very, very important. When you're on that pathway to trying to achieve a certain goal or outcome, it's important to take stock, to stop at times, to reflect, to take that bit of time away from what you're doing, get that brain space to be able to really assess, well, are we on the right track here? How can we improve and accelerate what we're doing to achieve those goals?
And would you celebrate goals? Quite often they would say give yourself a little reward if you achieve something. Would you be one of those people, or would you just go, done it, dusted, move on?
I suppose in a sporting environment, yes, there is. If you achieve something, you will celebrate it as a team, and I think that's important, to enjoy your success. Certainly in a sporting context, that's ultimately why we do it. We do it for enjoyment and to be part of that team atmosphere. So yeah, we would celebrate successes along the way, but the minute you've won success, it's automatically looking on, well, what's the next thing here?
With this big goal in mind, it's all little building blocks towards that.
Yeah, because once you achieve one successful outcome, there's a hurdle sitting around the corner that you're going to have to navigate to get to your next successful outcome. So yeah, it's really a bit of a conveyor belt. You move from one success and try and move on to the next.
You talked about managing that work-life balance, which when you have to take, would you tell me, 60 odd days off work for hockey?
Yeah.
How do you juggle everything? Time management is critical.
It is absolutely critical, and I suppose there's plenty of hours in the day, so we do a lot of early morning gym sessions, and then a lot of our evening training as well, and then weekend training, so it allows us to get time for work as well. But then I suppose your social life can get affected, and you have to make a lot of commitments and not go to family weddings and family birthdays because you're just expected to train and that's it, and that's, I suppose, the sacrifice you have to make at this stage. But you only get to be a high performance athlete until you're maybe your early 30s or mid 30s if you're lucky. So you really want to try and make the most of that chapter in your life and maximize your potential until, I suppose, the new chapter begins.
Okay, and moving goals into business area. You're in business at the minute. Obviously, maybe it's just my perception, but in a team environment, you can maybe be a little bit more forthright with a teammate. Particularly on the pitch if something's not happening. In a business environment, it's maybe slightly more different. You have to tread a path. So have you had a situation where you've wanted to act like a teammate from a hockey pitch in a business environment, and how did you deal with that?
I suppose in the sporting environment we always talk about the importance of open, honest communication and open and honest feedback. Because I think that's vitally important to help learn and evaluate and improve going forward. And I suppose it's quite similar in a work context, but sometimes you just have to temper your views a little bit. And I suppose it's just about having that rapport with people. When you're managing people, you speak in a respectful manner, and I think once there's mutual respect there, people are quite open to taking honest feedback. But I say it's just about your mannerism and how you go about things, I think, is critically important.
It's absolutely fascinating talking to you because we've never spoken like this before, and just because I look at it from a business point of view, and I've never had nor will the same level of sporting success, but it's so interesting seeing what you're doing on the sporting field and how closely aligned that is to business.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating, actually.
It is, yeah, and I suppose like in sport we're always talking about, well, what's the winning formula in terms of preparation, in terms of our schedule, in terms of our program, that we can achieve these big goals and big outcomes that we want to achieve, and it's very similar in a business context. I think it is very easy to sort of set an aspirational goal. Oh yeah, we'll set that goal, but I think the difficult part is actually, well, what's the pathway to achieving that? What are the key performance indicators? What are the interim targets that we need to be achieving if we're going to contribute to that overall goal? And I think once you do set that goal at the forefront of your mind, your everyday actions align to that. So
That's very true.
in a sporting context, if I'm saying I want to go to the Olympics and somebody's saying, do you want to go for 10 pints tonight?
Yeah.
You know, your mind is telling you, well, no, I've got this goal at the back of my head that says I want to
There
achieve
must be
that
one
goal.
part of you thinking,
Well, exactly. Yeah, there is always
Maybe.
that temptation, and
Yeah.
there is a life and sporting balance that you need to get there. And it is important to have time away from the pitch and to have that mental space. But that was just one example of the
Yeah.
sort of thing that when something is at the forefront of your mind, your daily actions and decisions will align to that.
yeah.
Once
every
it's
step that you take is moving
Yes.
you towards that. We do something at work, just as an aside, that we have a 10-year vision, which is what we
Yeah.
call a big, hairy, audacious goal. We then have a 3-year vision, which is a bit closer, so we should be able to touch it and see it
Yeah.
to a certain degree. We then have a 1-year picture, which is rock solid, definite. We need to know that
Yeah.
we're going to achieve X, Y, and Z. And then every member of our team have what we call 90-day rocks, which are what are the most important things that we need to do in the next 90 days to move the business forward, to hit our 1-year target. If we hit a 1-year target, hit a 3-year target, and it can be terms of revenue or culture or whatever thing. So it's really, really interesting to
Yeah.
see how those small steps lead to the 1 year and the longer term picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really interesting. What one piece of advice would you give someone who is setting out their business now?
I would sort of say don't be afraid to be aspirational and to dream big. I think in Northern Ireland there's a tendency, it is quite a conservative place. There's maybe a lack of confidence at times in people from Northern Ireland, but actually we're some of the most skillful, most talented, most entrepreneurial people about, and it's about realising that potential, realising that entrepreneurial spirit. So don't be afraid to dream big, but at the same time it requires a lot of hard work and commitment, and to achieve those big dreams or big aspirations, it does require a lot of commitment and I suppose the relentless pursuit of those goals and those dreams.